for both of you, do you have some childhood memories of libraries in your hometown? First of all, did you grow up knowing each other, or you come from very different places?
We do come from different places. I grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut.
And then I grew up on the West Coast, down in the San Diego area.
Okay. Yeah, so opposite coasts.
Okay, so how were libraries different, if at all, East and West?
Well, for me, mine was a brick building, much like what you would imagine of the East, and sort of stately, very well built and insulated and well kept, always tidy, very quiet, gorgeous.
And then mine was part of the San Diego public library system, and it was the Pacific Beach branch. And it was a very small library, but a place I liked to visit. It was where I learned how to, I discovered many things there, many wonderful things when I was little.
Was it a newer library at that time, up-to-date library at that time?
At that time, it would have been, it was probably 2 or 3 years old. And so it was, it was very modern and up-to-date. And recently it's been updated when we were back down there, which is nice. I know that public library system is having a lot of financial difficulties because the city of San Diego is having difficulties, but that particular branch has been redone.
I want to add something then about Darien, because they have just completed a very similar facility as we are doing here in Lafayette. It's the same sort of population and demographic, the town of Darien, like Lafayette, and they, I believe, spent about $59 million and have created a facility that has a community hall and a teen area and 4 stories high, just done when we were back in January of this year, 2009, visiting my dad. It was opening day.
Oh.
So we had the weekend and we stopped by, and it was absolutely
magnificent.
It was unbelievable because people were streaming in. It was full of life, and it was it is a gorgeous building. And
oldsters, youngsters,
families.
Yeah,
so much joy, really. And it was a cold winter day, but boy, there was a lot of bright, warm energy of, just the people coming and going.
Well, that's what we hope will happen here.
I
know.
It will. That's a shop, yeah. So how important was reading to you when you were growing up?
Well, I think I've always loved to read. I actually think I love reading even more now. I'm sort of a collector of books. I always seem to have way too much to read, but I just always have that, feeling like I'm going to get to the 19 things on my nightstand any minute.
For me, it was sports and reading were what I did when I was young, and I learned how to read through baseball. I would read the Sporting News, which was then a weekly magazine that my dad would bring home. Actually, it was a newspaper, and I'd read it cover to cover, and it was what I did when I was little. I played sports, and then I have a twin brother, and we read when we weren't playing sports.
Excellent. Did you have favorite books, childhood favorites?
I loved Maurice Sendak.
Chicken Soup
and then Chicken Soup with Rice, his little nutshell library. I can remember the tiny little books. And I loved A Wrinkle in Time. And I loved Nancie Drew.
And I loved, it was just following right on that, I loved the Hardy Boys. That was, I couldn't wait till a new volume came out. And then I read all the Nancie Drew books. Because I have an older sister, and she had those, so I read all those. And then my mom, when I was in 3rd grade, bought my brother and my twin brother and I the complete children's history of the world and the complete children's geography of the world. And I remember just reading those. I read those books time and again, and then she got us the World book and eventually the Encyclopedia Britannica. And I remember reading the World book probably when I was in 5th grade, just going all the way through it. And just loving it.
You're a reader. You're a
Yep.
reader. So the next question is, where did you grow up? So that I'm asking, did you stay many years in those places that you described, or were you fancying it all as you were growing up?
I stayed in Connecticut until I was 21. I went to a boarding school in Maine, so I also lived in Maine, but I spent my childhood in Connecticut, and then I came to the West Coast with a friend, and I intended to go back home, but I never did, other than to visit. I got a job at SeaWorld in San Diego, and I worked there for about 5 or 6 years. And then we moved, Tom and I met, and we married, and we started a home in this area. We first went to San Francisco.
And then I was, again, as I said earlier, before we started recording, born in Chicago. We moved out to the West Coast, as many people did in the mid-50s. My folks settled in San Diego, and then I was raised in the Pacific Beach area. Went to elementary school, Catholic elementary school and high school, and then went to University of Santa Clara, or Santa Clara University, that's what the way they call it. And then went to law school, went back down to San Diego, law school at the University of San Diego, and then worked down there for a while as a lawyer, and then Karen and I met, and I got a new position, a new job with a company in San Francisco, so we moved back up to the Bay Area.
So how long have you been here now then?
We've been here 22 years. We've been in the Bay Area, since 82.
82, yeah.
82.
Was there awareness of community for each of you while you were growing up? Awareness of community.
There definitely was for me. Growing up, both my parents were active in the town where I was raised in Darien, in many ways, both through church, the Children's Aid Society, a lot of philanthropic things at the grassroots level. We were always involved in things that had to do with community. So, yes, I'd say we were, got the message that where you live is important, and you should give back to that space and those people.
And I think my upbringing was similar. My folks were both very, very involved in the community. My father founded United Way in San Diego, and my mom was always very active both at church and in our schools and in the general community. Mercy Hospital down in San Diego, she was on their board for many years. And the message I'm one of 7 children, the message to all the kids was really the principal thing you can do in life is to give to others. And that's really what's most rewarding. So that was, just one of the mantras of our family.
That's beautiful. You told us a bit about your educational background and experience, and you mentioned SeaWorld, but is there anything else to add in work experiences for you?
Well, I worked at a law firm for about 3 years. I'm not a lawyer. I worked in a secretarial position. I went to a vocational school on the East Coast, Gibbs College, akin to, I suppose, an AA degree type of certification program. And then I worked at SeaWorld when I was in San Diego, like I said, for 5 or 6 years, and then I worked in a consulting firm designing retirement benefit plans for about another 5 years up in San Francisco. A small consulting firm that ultimately merged with a larger company.
Interesting clients.
Oh, very. A lot of entertainment and small restaurants, doctors and what have you in the San Francisco area, the Doobie Brothers, Ernie's, lots of Cafe Regio, lots of San Francisco hot spots. It was fun. It was really fun. And then when we became pregnant, after I gave birth, I decided I really couldn't do both things well. So I wanted to spend time raising my children.
Which is what led us to Lafayette.
Well, that was the next question. What attracted you to Lafayette? Yeah.
Yeah, we were, let's see, we've been in San Francisco. We moved down to LA for a couple of years where I continued to work and you did as well. And then I discovered I was pregnant. We'd had some trouble for about 5 years trying to have a family. And so I did try to continue working, but as I say, wanted to stay home. And when we moved back up to Lafayette, at first we thought we might go to San Francisco, but we decided we really wanted to be in a community that was, in our view, more conducive to raising a family. And Tom knew about this area more than I did.
The schools, principally, we picked it, we wanted a smaller community. Once we decided San Francisco, it just wasn't practical with what was going to be a young family. We looked around the area, and we looked in the La Miranda community, and we ended up picking Lafayette. We liked the location, and just the schools were good, and it was small. And that was, to us, very attractive. And the people were, the people we met were very down to earth. We had, I knew people that lived over in the Athertons and up in, Tiburon and Belvedere, and the people here just seemed to be more down to earth, more our kind of people.
The cultures are interesting how varied they can be, even in La Miranda from Morada to Lafayette too.
Well, yeah.
There are slight changes in cultural attitudes, just some small little changes of geography.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is.
It's been my experience. I'm on the Acalanes Union High School District Governing Board, and knowing a number of people from each community, there are definite differences.
Well, yeah.
If we define goals of a community as a place of mutual support, shared values, and acceptance of differences, how do you see Lafayette meeting these goals as you do?
Well, I certainly do. I see it in, again, my involvement, since I haven't been working in a more formal way. Clearly, my involvement has been in the school and in education, and clearly these communities, and the Lafayette community in particular, support public education, and which I think is just the lifeblood of the future and lifeblood of the community.
Absolutely.
And then also just looking at our involvement with the library, and Karen's involved in several other organizations. It's what really makes us, what makes humankind, the ability of the community to help itself and help each other.
Yeah, and the reason I paused a little bit is because I go all the way back to having small children, and Tom traveling a lot, which necessitated my being able to lean on others for a feeling of community, all the way back to co-oping at the Lafayette Nursery School, which is kind of a landmark and a historic sort of institution here. It has been here for, I think, almost 50 years. And all the way back, Hilma Jones being one person that's been a common thread all the way back since then.
Circle time with Hilma Jones,
yeah, and
School.
So many others that continue to, just do all manner of things for this community. And then also, not just in the structure of supporting the institutions or campaigning for a parcel tax or doing this or that for the wider community, but what happens when a family is in need through sickness or whatever it happens to be. I feel I've never really experienced the kind of support that is here in this community always. I've seen it so many times. It's really quite remarkable.
Do you have some early memories of the old Lafayette Library, perhaps with your children?
I used to take my kids there a lot. In fact, I have it in all my library stuff in the dining room that has become sort of a volunteer station in there. But I have a picture of Mason with a whalebone holding it in the Lafayette Library. We used to go there for story time and all sorts of activities at the Lafayette Library. It was tiny, but my kids were small, and it felt very comforting, actually, to be in that kind of space. Very cozy, but also, you could certainly see that the town could use something slightly bigger.
My memory of it, I worked incessantly, probably obsessively, and so I don't have a lot of memories other than being surprised, frankly, being quite surprised when I went and saw it, and saw how
shoebox.
I didn't even know how to say it. I just was surprised that this community had a library like that. I just had an expectation that it was going to be more, and really it's one of the reasons why we have become involved in the new library, because I think the new library. Well, that's one of the reasons why because I was surprised at I think it was an okay spot, but I think I know what we're doing now is going to be better for this community.
Do you personally still use the library as it is in its present form? Parking being what it is.
I go to Sweet Thursdays, that kind of thing. I don't use it so much as a reference or a resource for books, but I do go to their programs, and I do like that very much. And what I think about in the new space is perhaps bringing a laptop down and working in the new library, writing and that kind of thing, which I don't think I could have done very well in the old library.
How do you feel a library serves the community?
Well, I think it's a cornerstone, much like the public school system. I think it's a place where everybody has a right to go, and it's a free service, supported, broadly and through state and county funds. And I think it serves its community by being a portal to everything. It's through the library's doors that we will really be able to access the rest of the world in ways that, for some people, that's the only way that they can do it. And it's a perfect way.
Especially with the consortium.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I view it as being the lifeblood of the community. Really, the new library will be a place where, it's going to be a place where people are going to be able to meet, communicate with one another, retrieve information, send information, and it will be ever evolving. What the Lafayette Library will be 40 years from now, we probably don't even understand, but it will be something, it'll be different.
The thing I would add too is I think a library is like a sanctuary. I think it's very much a spot that just isn't, dare I say, sullied by anything else. It's its own little peaceful spot, and people really revere it in a different way than almost any other thing that is in a community. I think it's really a very peaceful spot for everyone.
I'd almost say I can remember when I was a youngster, it was, and again, this shows my Catholic, my religious upbringing. It's almost a sacred place where one can go and be quiet and read and think. And
without that religious overtone,
right.
Just very.
But just that's the way I viewed it. And this one is going to be even better because it's going to be a place where you can come and not only be quiet and think, but you can also, there will be spots where people can communicate with one another. So, it's ideal.
You talked about using the library. Have you been involved in library activities over the years in any way?
I sure am now,
Yeah.
and have been, I guess, well, back to when we first knew that the library was the dream that it was becoming. We were involved as donors and supporters in that way. And I'm trying to think back if there was anything specific we did other than major donation to the library. But in the last, well, it'll be going on 2 years, been very involved in helping them write. I'm on the board. I'm doing a lot of their written materials and lots of other efforts for the library.
My effort has been, I mean, until I stopped working in the traditional way, I wasn't cognizant of a lot that was going on. I was so focused on working, so I was not that involved in the library.
Why do you think citizens of Lafayette have responded so enthusiastically to this new project? Because they have.
Yeah. I think, well, I think it's such an innovative idea, and it would be almost impossible not to be enthralled with the idea. And I also think that this community is forward-thinking, and I do think in line with its support of education and institutions like that, that this is just hand in hand. This is really a partnering with all the educational opportunities that are here in this community. So I think the schools and the library go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think the library and consortium are what this community is. I mean, it's a group of people and institutions who, as Karen said, are forward-thinking, and it's a way to build even more of a sense of community. And I think the people that I know in Lafayette, that's the way they think.
I think it's been a lacking, if there was anything in this community that has been lacking, it's been sort of that focal spot in town. Mm-hmm. And I think we've referred to it now as it will be the heart of Lafayette. And I really believe that. And you're talking about lifeblood, and it is that. It is exactly that.
Would you say that's the outcome you hope most for the new library, or is there another that you would suggest?
I think that would be a great outcome, and I think that it's almost impossible that that doesn't happen. I think that will happen. I'd love to see the library also reach out to areas where people don't have the kind of access that we will have right here in town. And I do think that is one of the goals of the library, which is to bring programs either out to people who can't get to them or bring people in from outlying areas that don't have the same access. So I'd like to see that happen.
And then my thought would be more just basically what I said with the earlier thought, and that is that I'm very satisfied with the sense of community that will continue to create.
What do you look forward to using, doing, enjoying the most?
Wow, I think kind of all of it, but I guess I would say I'm really looking forward to the programming. I also really look forward to taking whatever I decide to write with, whether it be a computer or just a piece of paper, and going down and having an amazingly beautiful spot to write in that doesn't, isn't my home, so I'm not interrupted by many other things. I think that will be really exciting.
Yeah, and people love that, which is why you see so many in Starbucks.
Right. Right. Yes, I think
the human longing somehow to be with others and in a wonderful space and do your contemplative work.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I really can just almost feel myself sitting there just kind of taking it all in and, you know, and really just, I think that sense of peace too, of being in a place, certainly also because I've been very involved in it, but I think whether I had or I had not, I think going into that space is really going to be, you know, just unlike anything else. I think it's really very excited about it.
As I'm looking forward to the programming. I talk about fantasizing about something. I'm thinking, you know, I read the Wall Street Journal in the morning, and, you know, I go online for a lot of different financial areas. But being able to finish up reading the Wall Street Journal, having a cup of coffee down at the library, seeing some folks, you know, chatting it up a little bit, meeting Karen down there, going to lunch someplace where we can walk. You know, it's going to be nice.
A sense of community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some people predicted the internet would kill the printed word and libraries would become obsolete. How will our new library avoid such a fate?
You know, I don't believe that pronouncement, and I've read so many articles in the last couple of years that continue to say that the statistics for people who are buying and reading books is actually going up. And so, especially in economic times where things are more difficult, I think the library is that much more attractive because you can find everything there. And if it isn't a book, you can get online anyway. But I believe that people will never cease to love books, to have something to hold in their hand, to be able to check it out for free, to have that sense of membership to an institution like that, and, you know, have an ownership and the borrowing and lending of these books. I think that will never, ever fade away.
I think a couple of things on that end. I think one, I think that the people that have those thoughts or make that statement don't really understand what a library now is. A library is more than we talked earlier about. Remember when I first went into the Pacific Beach Library, I needed to be very quiet, and there will be spots in this library that have that, where you can read a book, do your homework, and it'll be relatively quiet. There will be other spots in the library where you have access to any electronic media you want to have access to. And, you know, I said earlier, 40 years from now, 40 years after this library, the Lafayette Library opens, it will be different, because that's the nature of the beast. That's what we have a board for, to look and oversee that. But it will evolve, and that's good. That's what we need. The other thing I'll say is, and this is probably not for attribution, and if you ever write this, it's probably not going to be popular. But I think that's an argument that people use so they don't have to give to the library. And because I personally have asked several people to consider making donations to the library, and that's one of the arguments they use. And of course, I will tell them I think it's a fallacious argument, but it isn't. It is something that people say. I think we haven't even begun to see what this library is going to do for the community. It's much more than the library I walked into in 1955 in Pacific Beach, California.
The last question, almost the last question, has already mostly been answered, but I will pose it anyway. How do you think the library will affect, better serve, enhance our sense of community? Anything more to say on that? We've pretty much talked around that, but there may be a particular point you'd like to make.
I think the programming, the community doesn't understand what the programming is going to do, because I think the programming will be so varied and will encompass, I can't even imagine at this point the wealth of topics it's going to be able to address. And it can be anything. It can be in the political genre, It could be in the economic genre. It can be in the family care genre. It can be aging. I mean, my mind is starting to race now. Dealing with the elderly, just the different issues that we'll be able to address. That will be so interesting to this community. And then again, just as it is going to be, I believe it's going to be the focal point, will become the focal point of Lafayette.
I guess the one thing I would say that I don't know that we did talk about is the sense that the kids will have in terms of several things. The commitment of the adults in the community, and also all the way down, because there are children who have given to the library fund, but to see that this community felt that that was important enough to build is a tremendous statement and ripples out in all different ways. But I also think that when the state of California and our whole country, etc., is in the throes of a very difficult economic time, I think one thing that the kids for the foreseeable future can rely on is this as a resource, that they, something happens in the public school domain, this is another place that they can go and study and get resource materials and references, and it's just another way that they are supported to further their education and have something available to them. And I just think it says a lot about, we talk a lot about what's good and what we should be doing and what have you, and a lot of times things do and don't get done. But I think this facility being built says, more than any words could ever say. So I think that's a really big thing for the kids of this community and all families. So,
Two last points. Is there anyone else you think we should contact for an interview, and have I left anything out? Do you have any final thoughts? Any comments on any of that?
I guess, the one comment I'd have, I'm not sure about who else to interview because I don't know who has been interviewed.
Exactly, and there are
but
many.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have this wish and hope, and I know I'm not the only one, that dreams of 100% participation of support throughout the community, and that could mean $1, $1 plus some time. It could mean whatever it is that a person or a family can give is important. And I think that sometimes people think, oh, I can't give enough, so I won't give anything. But giving nothing is, I just hope people can feel that giving something is very worthy. It doesn't matter what it is and what the monetary value of it is. It matters that they feel they're connected to the library. And I really feel that so deeply, and I wish I knew a better way to get that message across, because I think it really would change how everybody feels in the community towards the facility. And everybody would feel that sense of ownership, which I think is important.
Participation.
Yeah. So that would be the only other thing, I think.
Good. I think we're done.
Are we?
We're done.
We're done.
You are amazing.